She's one of the three co-founders of Art Fair Philippines, now in its 12th year exhibiting and selling the best in modern and contemporary Philippine visual art. With us now on Thought Leaders as part of our Women's Month special, Trickie Colayco-Lopa. So good to have you here, Trickie. Thank you so much for joining us and congratulations.
Thanks, Cathy. Thanks for having me.
You've held the art fair for the first time in an urban garden. When I was talking to Dindin Araneta on Money Talks, she was saying that this was the key difference from the other art fairs that you've mounted. It was always in the Link car park, and now it's in an urban garden.
Yeah.
So how did that go for you? For you all three?
You know what? I was nervous until maybe 10 days before the fair. And when I walked through, and I remember walking through right with photographer Neil Oshima, coming from his opening photo moto shot Ayala Museum, and walked through, and I actually turned to him and I said, Neil, it's a real art fair. So yeah, so I mean, that's when I thought, oh, we could actually pull this off. And I think based on the feedback we got this weekend that we actually did.
Well, what
So,
are the
yes.
metrics do you look for? I mean, what would make it a success, or what made it a success?
You know what? The change was maybe it was a good time to have it. The Link has been a great home. When we couldn't find a place to mount the art fair, the Link served as the perfect place to do it. I guess we taught the Manila audience what an art fair was. And so we started with one floor there, 24 galleries, and just moved up and moved up and moved up until we occupied the entire car park. But like anything else, you always need something fresh and new. And we moved to the heart of Makati City, the financial and commercial capital of the Philippines. And I guess this shows that the art fair has been at the center also of the cultural life of the Philippines, if I may say so. Yeah, without sounding mayabang or anything like that, right? Yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't take down the installations and just leave them there.
No, I
Make
think
it a permanent setup.
No, I think the office people in that triangle want their space back. So yes, yeah.
We have to talk about your two other founders.
Yes,
they're
of
not
course.
here, but they're
Yeah,
part of
and
the
I
conversation.
don't know why they're not here, but yeah, they left me to you. So yeah.
But you're ably answering everything. But I wanted to know the kind of evolution you've had as friends,
Yes.
how you've come to appreciate art, and how is that all changing with the changes we're seeing in the art scene as well, and how you're taking forward the art fair into the next few years.
How did this all start? Lisa and I both had a hand in conceptualizing the Salcedo Saturday Market. And from then, Art in the Park was born, which we did as a fundraising project first of all, to celebrate the anniversary of the Salcedo Saturday Market, which we were part of, and then to raise funds for the Museum Foundation of the Philippines at the time, because it needed funding to support to help its support of the National Museum. Dindin Araneta at the time was executive director of the Museum Foundation of it. So that's how we all came together and started doing all of these projects together. And in the end, the art fair came along, and so it's been going along. Yeah. In our core group is mainly women. You'll find that in the arts, that there's a lot of women working in the art sector, but we work very organically. That's how it is, actually. Everybody brings in their interests or what they feel strongly about, and it's discussed, and it's a collective decision until things get so big, you have to scramble and do what you can on your own. So, but yeah.
You shared in a previous interview that choosing to establish an art fair in a car park was the most significant curatorial decision that you all made, all of you, when you started the art fair.
Yeah.
Now that you've moved it to an urban garden, I'm wondering now how you're seeing the evolution of contemporary local art moving right along as the years go by and as you change the venues in which you display and exhibit.
Yeah, we always keep pace with the audience, I suppose. We have the pulse on the ground with what happens with the art scene. So we needed an art fair where we put it up at the financial center of the Philippines, of the country, where it would be easy for office workers to come for lunch, come after work. So we had to do it in Makati, right? At that time, 24 galleries, one floor, that worked perfectly well, right? the fair grew as the art scene and the art ecosystem expanded. And now maybe we're reaching a stage, and I suppose, yes, we've reached a stage when we're ready to push it one level higher. And that's why an ambitious mounting at the park. So yeah, so I mean, it was an important curatorial decision 12 years ago. Now I guess it's another decision that the landscape has gone to the point where it's time to bring everybody something new again. And that's what I hope we did. Yeah.
Yeah, talk to us about that art ecosystem, because many years we know that there are gaps in that ecosystem. But during the pandemic, there were emerging artists that came out, the young, local, corporate, contemporary artists coming out of the woodwork from the lockdowns, and then the growth of galleries, more galleries coming through after the pandemic. How has that changed then the local art scene, as we're seeing more artists and more galleries come in?
Okay, so by an art ecosystem, what you mean is art fair is just one component. You have the galleries, which is another commercial component, the auction houses, another commercial component, and then you have the institutional component, the museums, right? The university museums are the most active in terms of contemporary art. And then I suppose that's it. And then, of course, you have the collectors or the art appreciators, the audience. So everything feeds into everything else. And that's the art ecosystem. I hope I didn't forget anything, but that's essentially the art ecosystem. So we've seen it mature and develop. I mean, 12 years ago, maybe we just had a few galleries and the art fair. And then the auction houses started being more active. And then the university museums, yes, they were always there, but they've stepped up in terms of showcasing the contemporary art, in terms of their contemporary art program. So you have people stepping up and filling all those gaps. So now we have a thriving scene, a thriving art landscape that just supports and moves around with each other. So I guess that's it. During the pandemic, I'm not sure, because that's one thing we lack. We don't have any hard facts. I think the British Council is trying to do some sort of cultural mapping, but we don't have any hard data in terms of number of galleries, sales, audience. I mean, we can make educated guesses based on what we see, because we know the art scene. But I'm not sure how many galleries actually did sprout up during the pandemic. But the Philippine arts landscape was, I suppose, strong enough, robust enough that we survived the pandemic. I mean, just our events alone, we shifted them online, and the audience we got was the same as if we had a live version. And I think the galleries were able to as well continue with their showcasing and selling activities by shifting online. You know, there were a lot of sales done through Viber. I mean, things like we adapted, right? And then now we're back to kind of like the normal. We're kind of back to pre-pandemic, but maybe a little better, maybe a little more nuanced, more knowledgeable now. But yeah,
More knowledgeable with technology
yes,
in the mix.
yes,
like
in that you don't have
purchasing
yes,
via
you don't have
Viber
to totally
to
go back.
trusted galleries, perhaps.
Maybe we know how to make use of platforms already that the galleries, I'm speaking for the galleries, at the same time they do their live programs, they've not let go of their online platforms as well. So it's like, in the sense, you adapt, but you kind of like go a little step higher, go a little step higher. So yeah, this is where we are.
Right. From the artist's point of view, I know that they've done online commissions, and more important are the communities that are forming around digital art, which we hadn't seen pre-pandemic.
Yes.
And then there's also institutions using technologies like, say, the QR code. That's something we hadn't seen before.
Yes.
And that kind of technology brought art to the people in a different platform. So I'm wondering now how all this has influenced artists' styles and themes. Because of all the change that's happening in the ecosystem, the heart of the creativity, how then did it change it?
Art magnifies life. Art reflects life. So if that is what's occurring in real life, for sure it's being present in art, right? I'm not an artist, so I mean, I can't speak for them with absolute certainty, but based on what I see, if you're an artist, you reflect what's going on in real life, and you can't help that. So that comes out in art. In terms of digital art, that's one community that we brought into the fold. I think Art Fair Philippines had a lot to do with that. In 2021, we had to mount our edition completely online. And while we were planning this, things like NFT and crypto art were in the conversation.
Non-fungible tokens.
Yes, these were in the conversation. Note, we start planning our fair 10 months before. So this was June 2020, at the height of the lockdown. We're talking about what we can do. We started reaching out to digital artists. The whole NFT scene exploded shortly before our art fair, I think in Feb of 2021. So by that time, we had already planned our edition to revolve around digital art. We called it Welcome to the Metaverse. So knowing that there's a sizable digital arts community here, because there's a huge gaming community here. Not gamers, but a lot of games are designed in the Philippines. So you have people who work with them very comfortable with working digitally, and they are artists. So we brought them into the fold. In 2022. We launched a digital arts section, and we have it every year. Their works get more ambitious every year, and they're part of the contemporary art landscape already.
Well, you say you're not an artist, but you are a collector, and that's
I
what got you
suppose.
started
Yes,
in art
I'm
in
a
the
very
park.
modest collector. Okay, may I just
Modest.
add? Yeah, yeah.
What does modest mean, though?
Modest means I don't have storage, a huge storage facility with lots of art not being displayed in my home. No,
But
not like
what
that.
to
Yeah.
you then is the evolution from the way you collected, from the point of view of a collector? How do you think that's changed? And have you bought digital art with NFTs?
I actually did, because Art in the Park did an edition of one Egg Fiasco. When we featured him as a special exhibit, he had a NFT that went along with the work that he was showing. So I did, yeah. I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it in my screen, but maybe I'm not really the main audience for that. I actually like art that's not. I like textiles, and I like ceramics, and I like sculpture. That's what I like. So yeah.
So it's mixed media, more of that
I
you're
suppose,
looking for
yeah.
from a local contemporary artist.
Maybe that's me. Yeah. Yeah.
Talk to us about the changes in the local contemporary artists' favorite themes, because we're now talking about digital media, social media opening up artists to international themes. But we often like to think that if you're a Filipino artist, you'd want to bring out the Filipino in you and your art. But are they taking on more international themes, or have they preserved that sort of cultural strength in
I
their
don't think
artwork?
artists think about that. I think they work with what is their reality, what is their skill set, what they feel like bringing out. So I don't think it's ever been consciously that we are Filipino, we work this way. No, never. I mean, you're an artist, you express yourself through your art, and because you're a Filipino artist doing that, then it is Filipino art. But throughout throughout this time that I've been an observer of the local art scene, I never classified art that way. Oh, it's so Pinoy. So no, nothing like that. I mean, this artist does good work. You look at art is art. Whatever you are in the world, art is art. Good art is good art. Bad art is bad art. I mean, you never look at it in terms of nationality. The only time you look at it in terms of nationality is, for me, the artist I support, or price points, maybe, things like that. But whether art is good or bad, it's not classified into where they come from, which country an artist comes from. Yeah.
But you got about 15% of your audience in the art fair coming from overseas.
No, 15% of our galleries
Okay.
participating in the fair.
And what do they bring with them then? And what's their interest in the art that they want to see in the art fair?
That just proves my point, right? When we started the fair 12 years ago, I think you wouldn't get the Filipino audience interested in art that's not Filipino. But as I think the art fair has exposed them to varied forms of contemporary art, they look at art as well. So a Japanese gallery's work that they bring in from a Japanese artist resonates with them, not because it's Japanese, but because it resonates with them. And there's an Indonesian artist named Unizar who is brought in by a Singapore-based gallery. He has expanded his collector base in the Philippines because his works are just so good. And I don't think the buyers here were at first thinking, oh, he's Indonesian, we should buy him. No, it's like, oh, this artist is so interesting. His works are whimsical, they're colorful, his sculpture is so fun. That's how he's gotten support from local collectors. So again, I mean, as I said, if it's an international artist, but the work resonates with the local audience, then they find people who accept them here, acquire them, admire them, follow them, because the work is good.
How do we resonate as local artists in a foreign country?
Well, okay, we've just come from a banner year for Philippine art. 2024 was a banner year for Philippine art, led by our global superstar, Pasita Abad, and her tapestries. She, when I was, over the summer, I was in New York, she was in MoMA PS1, major institution. And this show had just traveled. It was at the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis. It moved to San Francisco. It was in New York when I was there, and then it moved to the Art Gallery of Ontario. Okay, Pasita Abad, global superstar. At the same time this was happening in New York, in LA, the Hammer Museum featured another Filipino artist, David Medalla, major retrospective. And then at the last quarter of the year, you had the Turner Prize, shortlisted Pio Abad, Filipino artist. So I'm saying, does it resonate with an audience abroad? Obviously, it does, right? How does it do so? Because again, the work is good. It's something that I guess touches what is important to people today. Pasita Abad is a woman of color working with fabric, embroidery. The whole world sort of recognizes that art forms like quilts or textile that were once dismissed as women's hobbies, women's work, and it's now actually fine art. It's art as well. So she's come out at the right moment, and she, I guess, addresses issues that are important to today. That's why she's recognized. The same way that Pio is, the same way that David Medalla is. When he was working in London in the 70s and 80s, they thought he was just a gadfly, somebody who was like, okay, lurking in the scene. But what he was doing, performances, talking about colonialism, so important. And now people recognize that. So it's just by being themselves, right, that they were recognized. Yeah.
When the young artists listen to you and to those greats who have gone around the world and inspire the young ones, how much of a struggle is it for the young local contemporary artists to balance artistic experimentation and commercial viability?
I'm sure it must be so difficult.
Still,
I'm sure. I think not just with them, but any other artist. It's hard, right? I mean, you want to be true to yourself, but at the same time, you have to eat. This is when perhaps the role of a gallery comes in. A gallery would support your financial concerns while letting you be and trying to push you. So that's always the million-dollar question, actually. How does one balance commercial concerns with artistic concerns?
I would have thought the digital era would have changed that, giving the artist more opportunity because there are more platforms to express.
I suppose, but at the same time, you also want to be validated still in an institution, likely. I mean, okay, let's put it this way, there's no one answer. Each artist may be happy in a certain sphere. So maybe the digital era helped some artists get exposure when they wouldn't have. But that struggle between commercial and artistic expression, I think it would still be there.
Imagine in the 80s and 90s, there were just few artists during those decades. And right now, there's a lot. So the challenges must be a lot more to be able to rise out of an even bigger, say, ecosystem. Is that a challenge that they're having to contend with, that there are more in the midst than there were in the 80s or 90s?
I don't know. I guess so. I guess so, yeah. I never thought of it, to be honest. But yes, there is a lot more choice now. But again, there's a lot more means of support. As you said, the galleries we have more galleries. That means there are a lot more systems that support artists who may not necessarily just appeal to a certain audience, but maybe their audience is a different sector. And so there's that avenue as well.
I wanted to pick up on digital art because that's something you brought into the art fair very early on, I think in 2021.
2021, yeah. I think we brought in at the same time that the world was opening up to it. Yes.
So that's 4 years of just observing and seeing how
Yeah.
the digital medium is changing, how art is also changing.
Mhm.
How do you think AI functions as a form of a tool, or maybe a constraint or a challenge to the human artist?
Okay,
artificial intelligence.
That is a question that's being debated all over the globe at the moment, and I'm sure it exists here in a certain sense. I think AI is a tool to make life easier, and that's what it should be. It shouldn't replace the artist's mind or the artist's hand. So, but if it's a tool that helps them uh, create better, why not? But whether or not AI is here to stay, let's put it that way. So, the art world, like the rest of the world, will just have to adapt to how it's there, and I think the regulations will have to adapt as well. From what I understand, I mean, last year kasi I had to do a talk um, on exactly this, and tools like or platforms like Midjourney, all of that artists use, they are also recognizing that they have to compensate artists whose work are, I guess, are used to help other artists work. So I'm not very clear about it now. This was like maybe a year ago. So I'm sure things have changed. But I believe that regulations will also adapt to make sure that things are equitable for everybody.
As a whole, when you talk about the art ecosystem in the Philippines and compare that with the countries you visited, we've mentioned Korea, Freeze, Hong Kong, Basel,
Yes.
Singapore
Yes.
also has its own. How can we be attractive to them? Is there an effort towards knowing the path into their own art so that we would be more exposed or
You
maybe
know-
even promoted
Yeah.
to the region?
Global art conversations right now are focused on the global south, which we are part of. So, I mean, we're lucky that the eye is on our part of the world. Southeast Asia is resonating very strongly with institutions. I mean, the MoMA, for instance, has a curatorial position specifically for Southeast Asia. Thailand is leading the way in Southeast Asia in terms of their biennale, their institutions, what they're doing. And people fly to Thailand, we're going to get a spillover in Jakarta, Manila, Ho Chi Minh, we're going to get that. So I think we just continue doing what we do, and then the world will discover us and start appreciating what we've always valued.
What do you think Thailand is doing right? That they're leading the pack here in the global south? That we're not, that we could?
Government support. Yeah. So please don't say that, but yeah.
Well, in the way
What are they doing right in that they have a biennale that is being led by the government, and the government is very open to interacting with the local art community. So they're not imposing what they think a biennale should be. I'm not saying they're doing that here. It's just that we've never done it here. They're doing it right. Thailand is doing it right in that they're working with existing players, the existing ecosystem, to do a biennale in Bangkok. There's going to be one in Chiang Mai, and that attracts the audience to go there because it's done properly. So yeah, so and then they've just opened a Kunsthalle, which is privately funded, but it's bringing in curators, international curators, to work there. So yes, yeah.
I'm getting that the perfect combination of public-private partnership is
Yes.
one that works out.
I think
best.
that's the best word for it. Yes.
So if you were to transpose that to the Philippine setting, as you've been with the art fair for,
Yes.
for 12 years, what then can the art fair do to bridge the gap between public and private support for Philippine
Well, we
arts?
are entirely privately funded, so I'm not sure how to answer that. I mean, we're lucky that our sponsors have just said, "Do what you do best. We will back you." So we're lucky in that. We're able to carry out our vision because we have strong support from our corporate sponsors. It's not enough, but it helps us really carry on what we believe we should be doing, right? What does the art fair do? It's funny when you have institutional groups like a group of curators from the MoMA coming, and they're coming soon. They ask us and help us organize what should we see in the Philippines. So in a sense, we are some sort of cultural ambassadors, I guess. So one of the Asia directors of a global art gallery told me, because she's an old Asia hand. I mean, if that sounds weird, but she told me, you know, you describe it, Trickie. You talk about the art fair as a grassroots art fair, because in Western people's mind, an art fair is slick. It's art basel. It's like only for the elite. But your art fair is grassroots in that it mirrors the local art scene, and there's a quasi-cultural exchange role that we play, I guess, as cultural ambassadors. Like I mentioned, that people come to us and say, okay, help us. What should we show people flying in? And we're happy to do it. We've organized it several times, you know, for museums coming in and like introducing them to local collectors or artists, arranging things for that. We're happy to do that.
And it's really part of,
yeah.
of that community building that you want to generate from the art fair.
Yes, yeah.
And bringing foreign eyes to that scene.
Yes.
So what are you going to be presenting them then when the MoMA comes here to Manila, the Philippines? How are you going to promote us?
Exactly what we have. What is showing the university museums at the moment, bringing them to private collections, which we think reflect the art history of our art history in a nutshell. If the art fair was on, we would have brought them in to go around the arts and they'll see things in one go. But yeah, we just show what we have, not reinventing the wheel or anything like that.
When you get visited by MoMA, what's the opportunity there out in the world now that Global South is right there,
artist is
highlighted?
An artist is seen, and maybe there's a show that's coming up in a global institution where that artist can participate. Oh, I forgot to mention, one thing we launched this year is a curator residency program. We used to have a residency program. We launched it in the pandemic for artists to move out of their milieu. So we had 5 residency partners around the Philippines, and artists would apply and they then would be able to spend the month in Palawan or in Cavite or in La Union. Artists would go out. This time we decided maybe the best way to shine a spotlight on Filipino artists would be to invite an international curator to come in, spend 3 weeks to a month here, and get to know the art scene. And we're talking about emerging curators also who are also building their own practice. And so we launched that this year, and we've chosen 2 curators to come anytime in the next year, spend time here, get to know not just the Manila art scene, but go to Baguio, go to Bacolod, where there are thriving art scenes as well. And just see if there's an artist that they can bring out to their projects. So yeah, so bringing the mountain to Muhammad. Muhammad won't come to the mountain, right? Yeah.
So what did the international curator find then? What are the initial findings?
We haven't done it yet. We just announced the selected grantees, and we're scheduling their visits, which is supposed to happen within the next year.
All right, I know it's early on, but are these parts and parcels of how Art Fair will look like in 2026?
I suppose.
How do you plan out? You haven't even moved the stuff out.
No.
Of the art fair in Ayala Triangle.
We start planning in May, so it gives us 10 months. So, but right now we're just savoring what we think was a pretty good art fair. And then we will start looking at 2026 in May 2025.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about art, but we haven't talked about the viability part as an art fair.
Yeah.
How do you make money out of it?
We don't? No. Well, we get corporate sponsors to help defray some costs. It's a struggle, really, because it costs a lot. And in a sense, we're kind of dreamers. No, let's just put it in, because it will add so much to the fair, and we've managed to sustain it year after year. I mean, just to, at least enough so that the next year there's still another art fair. So that's how it is. That's the reality of it. And I think that's reflective of the art scene, probably, that galleries, especially the medium-sized one, not the big ones, you just make enough so that your costs are covered and you can go on. That's how we've done it. And we've managed to last 12 years that way.
What about the small-sized galleries? Are you also focusing your attention on them?
We do what we can. We have various booth sizes for them, so we do what we can, actually. There's art in the park for really starting out art groups, so that's a different story.
So there's a sort of a different requirement before they can be part of
The art fair,
the art
yes.
fair.
Yeah, ideally you should have had at least 1 year of programming, and we look at what you plan to do for the fair. So we kind of like make sure that the presentations are suited to what we feel an art fair should be.
What are you seeing 10 months down the line? You've mentioned tapestries, fabrics, not even paintings. What
The
kinds
paintings
of
will always
media?
be there. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mixed media, maybe? What kinds of
Um,
art will be the in thing? Maybe 10 months to the
um,
year ahead?
it's really hard to say. I mean, I only know what I like. So that's me, and not everybody agrees with what I like. Uh, I just like work that's genuine. That's that's how I choose, and you can tell when something really and it comes from something deep, and not just being a mirror or derivative of anything. And that's what I look for. So
But I know that you're interested in fabric, and it's
in
something
fabric,
that,
yeah.
yes, you also do for our designers in the Philippines.
Okay.
How does that all tie up with the
That
art
one,
fair?
when I need a break from artists and
Oh,
galleries,
okay.
I work with the fashion community, young fashion designers. Yeah, it doesn't tie up at all. Actually, it's something that I stumbled upon also because I've always, I guess I support Filipino creatives. Let's put it that way. And I like to wear Filipino without necessarily looking Filipiniana. And so it's like art in the park. You start out because you want to support young artists. I want to support young designers. So in 2019, a group of them actually asked me. They wanted to organize a conference to help young Filipino brands break out. At the time, it was the Japanese market, and they just needed help in organizing. I said, okay, I'll do it. So I helped them, and that's how I got involved with them. It's a group called PHX Fashion, the PHX Fashion Group, which is really a group started by young designers, Esme Palaganas and Seth Bagasa, who I'm wearing now. Anyway, and so the platform really is to help young Filipino labels work at a global standard. Not necessarily cater to a global audience, but sort of elevate how they work so that their operations are sustainable and are up to par with, let's say, a similar fashion label outside the Philippines. And it's not easy because creatives, they're there, but that has its own challenge. That's a whole other conversation, right? Yeah. Fabric supply, dealing with labor, price points, supplying. So we give them opportunities either through conversations or through pop-up opportunities, market opportunities. So there's a way for them to kind of like test out.
Talk to us about the fabrics. It's a whole different conversation.
Yes, that's a whole different conversation, mainly because I guess the fashion business has its own set of challenges, but my role in it is really just to support emerging fashion designers through the PHX Fashion Group in helping them in the business side of how they operate, providing market opportunities like pop-ups so they can test out the response of buyers to their designs. That's what we're doing this year.
Right. You do want to help the emerging artists, whether they be in art or in fashion. So that's
my personal I guess,
advocacy.
Yes, yeah.
2026, give us an idea of what we will see in your partnership.
Oh gosh, I think maybe a more improved version of 2025. Let's hope. Yeah.
So you'll be in the Ayala Triangle again.
That's all I'm committing to. Let's hope. Yeah.
Ayala Triangle again.
We hope so.
Okay. Thank you so much, Trixie. It's been such a pleasure. All the best.
Thank you.
The next art fair. And catch us again next Thursday at 9 p.m. Philippine Standard Time on One News. You can also check out the long conversation on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. And if you haven't done so, like or follow my social media pages. I'm Cathy Yang. This is Thought Leaders.